Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to another Thursday evening of the Sports Crib, brought to you by the Sports Crib Network. Let's get all the commercial stuff out of the way here. You can check us out on YouTube, subscribe and donate to our channel. Our Cash App is $ JE King 3, as you can see there in the corner of the bar. And
Oh, and now it's just me. Well, welcome to the Sports Crib, and we'll soon be rejoined by our host. There he is, James King, the one, the only. I was about to launch into my own show, so luckily you came back just in time before your show got hijacked.
well, yeah, it's not that you haven't been known to do that before, but usually you're a little more subtle. But it's
Usually,
okay.
yeah. It was like that moment where Sarah Palin decides, "Hey, I'm about to go rogue."
Oh man, but I know you've been working on some things this week.
Yep.
You sent me a note Monday that you had a deadline to meet, and
Yes.
I know a lot of that has been about the sports and whatnot. You want to tell us a little bit about what you've been working on?
I've started. It's very early in the process, but I've started breaking down the cornerback class. So I'm going to call it the not top 10. So it's guys outside of most people's top 10 that I think have a strong chance to be long-term NFL contributors and possibly even starters. Most people focus on the same several guys, right? And they're great players. I mean, Joey Porter Jr. I mean, I'm sure Pete Carroll just gets all gooey-eyed when he looks at him. 6'2.5", 197 pounds, long arms, strong. I mean, he is literally what Seattle in the Legion of Boom era sort of built their cornerback prototype around. And, Keely Ringo, some people are comparing him to Pat Peterson, which is, but he's physically gifted. That part is true. The kid has a 10.4 300 meters to his, as his personal record while he was sprinting. He's got good size. He's thickly built for a guy who's, not quite to Patrick Peterson's extent, but strong, physically strong. I don't trust his eyes. I've watched a fair amount of his tape, and he takes the cheese a lot, James. Now, he has enough recovery speed to sometimes run himself out of those mistakes, but when that's Tyreek Hill, I mean, you're fast, but you're not Tyreek Hill fast. You can't recover for some of these things at the next level. So I'm going to write about other guys, right? Clark Phillips III is a guy that some people are high on. I'm super high on him. He's right now my corner one. That may change. Obviously, it's early in the process. But I won't be talking about him because he is in most people's top 10.
Okay.
Guys that most people don't have in their top 10. That I think
we might talk about some of those in some shows upcoming as we start talking more about as we always do, the guys coming out when we talk about the defensive line, the O-line, the different guys that are coming out. Unlike Mike, you seem to keep track of all the positions, whereas Mike,
it's not just a fantasy thing for me. I think of the way I think of it. If James, like 3:00 in the morning, Omar Khan, who's the new GM of the Steelers, calls me at 3:00 in the morning and says, "Bill, I need your help. I want to be ready for that call." Now, it hasn't happened so far, but if it does, I'm there for you, Omar.
Just in case, if you need to know.
If at any point he realizes he's stuck, he needs some help. Because if he'd listened to me, we'd have Kyle Duggar on our team, James. But whatever. I'll Malcolm Rodriguez, he'd be on our team. Whatever. Spilled milk, no crying. But yes, we, as you know, I love sports, period. But the draft is my particular, what's the word? Obsession, maybe.
Okay.
Focus.
Uh,
Pick one.
no, I think we'll go back to obsession. But um, so there's a couple things that I'm sure that since it's just the two of us, and of course we're going to take as much time as we need anyway. But there's two scandals. Well, one is a scandal, and I don't know exactly the term to call the other one, but let's start with Brett Favre.
Yes,
And
let's please.
in a state where 60 to 75% of the applicants
Mhm.
aren't able to get cash assistance.
Correct.
Okay.
In the poorest state in the
In
union,
the
Mississippi is the poorest state of all 50 states, James.
Yeah,
And
and I'm not sure where it ranks among ignorance, but I'm sure it's somewhere in the
it's
top there
probably
too.
also
But
very, which is how this happened. But yes, they're right up there. I'm sure,
so
yeah.
so people accuse me of being down on the state of Minnesota in my Monday show, but let's talk about Mississippi.
Let's. Oof.
How, maybe tell me about this, the volleyball
So
auditorium.
yes,
I guess
and she
we want to call
transferred. She left. That's the part that kills me. She didn't even stay at Southern Miss. She transferred. I mean, this is it reads like a Coen Brothers film or something. Like some of the things that are happening in this feel. I mean, if you go to Hollywood and say, I've got a script, a broken down former great quarterback who is a beloved figure in a very, very poor state, that some people have even compared parts of it to almost a third world nation, is biding his time by, I guess he's OC at a high school down there, and obviously a pitchman for Wranglers and Copper Fit and whatever else. But he and the governor meet at I guess an event, probably a golf outing, who knows? But they start to talking, and at some point, someone, probably not Brett, no offense to Brett, hatches an ingenious scheme, which is not so ingenious and almost not a scheme, but at some point, someone says, "Hey, there's these grants that you can write that allow you to access TANF." Now, for those who know what TANF stands for, it stands for Temporary Aid to Needy Families. It is emergency aid that is temporary in nature for the very poorest people in your community. These are people who are disabled, have minor children, are either unable to work or have been unable to find work for an extended period of time. These are people who already are receiving food aid, but food aid isn't enough, right? So despite the fact that they are being given access to reduced price food, that still isn't going to be enough. So the reason that they're also getting this cash aid is because they would not make it without it, right? They would not make it without it. Enter, right, stage left, a group of individuals, a young woman, a governor, and a quarterback. And these three individuals begin to hatch a scheme to write a grant. Well, they don't literally write the grant themselves, but they have someone that works for them, I'm assuming, write this grant that allows them to use TANF funds that go to the poorest of the poor in the poorest state of all 50 states. And then they just sort of shoehorn in there that there'll also be things like job fairs, right? That's how they do it, James. They justify by saying, oh, we're going to have job fairs or farmers markets there too, right? That's how they justify it, is they say, yeah, well, it won't just be for volleyball. We'll also have, a couple of times a year, a job fair. And during certain times of the year, we'll have farmers markets where people can get fresh produce, even get introduced to agricultural careers and entrepreneurship. I think that's how they wrote it or phrased it or something along those lines. it is, like I said, it feels very much like something from an independent film script. So into this very strange mix of individuals, of politicians and operators, is this figurehead for this whole thing, right? One Brett Favre. And as he explains it in his defense of himself, he didn't know what the money was for or where it came from or how it got there or that's where it was coming from or all this other stuff.
But he did know that he did not go to the speaking engagements that he signed for.
He did know that. I'm going to assume at least that he knew that. Yes. I mean, I'll be surprised if he didn't know that he didn't go someplace to do something he said he was going to do. And to his, I won't even say his credit, because he did it to avoid, further trouble. The specific fees regarding that he has returned. Howsoever, that is not enough. So you have to understand that this gentleman he's from a town called Kiln, right? As in where you heat up clay. Just under 2,500 people on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. About an hour, in fact, not even a whole hour, probably about 52 minutes, I guess, if you drive, aggressively-ish from New Orleans. So actually, it's almost closer to. Because it's very close to the border, and he's done a lot of different things in his life, as we talked about, but he's a guy that's, like I said, a beloved figure. And in this particular case, $77 million, right? Not, a little bit of money, but $77 million. I mean, I don't know where you come from, James, but to where I come from, $77 million is still a fair amount of money. Ended up getting sort of right off the top of.
Yeah, I consider any amount of money that I cannot put in a duffel bag.
Okay.
And when it comes in denominations of $100 bills,
Okay.
I kind of consider that a lot of money.
Got it. So that for you, this passes the duffel bag. Okay, got it. So a total of 6 people have been pulled in, 5 of whom did plead guilty. Farve, of course, denied all wrongdoing, we just talked about. And
I mean, especially when I know that right now there's someone down in the San Diego County Jail doing 30 days for taking a pack of pens out of CVS. I mean, I'm just saying, it's okay to steal 77 million, but 79 cents we draw the line. But okay, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
That is, I don't even know what to say to that. So as I said, he did give back $1.1 million. First of all, what the heck kind of speeches he was giving where you get a 1.1? I mean, wow. You know what? Whatever speech he was going to give you on whatever topic, I will do it for 1/10 of that. You could have saved yourself almost $1 million that were never made. And still, he's being sued for $228 million in interest. $228,000 in interest. That part hasn't been worked out. And some of this was involved in the Pravacus, right? The drug.
See, now, although I know I can get more than that in a duffel bag, I still consider that a reasonable amount of money.
A reasonable amount of money. And that's the interest, right? Right. The interest is
right.
The interest passes the double. I mean, it doesn't pass the double back test, but it's close, right? It's. You might have a little room left for balaclava, gloves, zip tie, but so this drug company, of course, in which he is a major shareholder, also got sucked into this because guess what? They also received TANF funds, right? Of course they did. And of course, the Athletic Foundation at Southern Miss got $5 million in welfare money because why not? And so there's text messages with Farve pushing state officials to find funding for the volleyball facility at the time his daughter was at the time. As I said, she didn't stay. And then I'm going to quote the man himself because text messages went back and forth. It said, if you were to pay me, is there any way the media can find out where it came from and how much? He sent to Nancy New. Nancy New was the go-between, right? She was the official who ran the non-for-profit that did most of the work. They were the ones that wrote the actual grant proposals. They were the ones that were the go-between between the governor's office and Mr. Farve and Prevacus and whoever else. And he continued to press for money after being told by Phil Bryant, who was, the governor at the time, that misusing public funds could be illegal. I don't know why the word "could" was used. I mean, using the word misusing, I think could probably be not, whatever. Okay, so what happens at this point is that it becomes very clear at some point that whether Favre is willing to admit that he knew something was up, the fact that he's asking, could this be tied back to me, makes me think he must have at least had something must have felt a little off to him, because you don't just usually text someone, hey, is it possible for anyone to ever find out how much you gave me? And
well, I mean, the fact that maybe the fact that even I know a little bit about modern technology. The fact that you text someone shows that somewhere you did not think or know. I mean, you can look on almost any show on TV and, oh yeah, we triangulated them by their phone, and we broke into the phone, and we found the text messages between the lovers, and the murder was because, I mean, Sherlock Holmes 101. Hey, maybe CRT. I don't know. I'm just I'm just trying to figure out how you can say, well, what you could just as well just text in all caps, hey, I want this under the table. Isn't that what we call it out here, in the streets? I mean,
sure, right. I mean, and that's what they call it most places. But here's the other thing, and it's not directly related, but it's sort of symbolic. So Jackson, right, one of the major cities in Mississippi, does not have potable drinking water, right? You have a drinking water crisis in Jackson. And while, like I said, there's no direct correlation or relationship, it just, I mean, there's a term, not a good look. It basically describes what's going on here. And so the state auditor is a man named Shad White. And when this first was made known to him, he said, Brett Favre, the football player? Now, I don't know what Brett Favre he thought it was when it came across his desk. But, he couldn't believe that this money didn't, end up where it should have. And so the federal data shows that the state of Mississippi spent less than 5%, or about $3.7 million, on direct assistance to poor families. This is in the poorest state in the union, right? 50 out of 50. The average that reaches, and this includes states like Rhode Island, Delaware, whatever. So this is an average of the other states. The average amount is $22 million, right?
And you said 3 million?
3.7, which is 5% of the total funds available to be allocated. 5% of it, James, 3.7 million of it made its way into the hands of actual poor people. So, I mean, I could literally spend an entire show on how broken this all is, even without the scandal part. Now, the scandal helps or hurts, or however you want to put it. But there's so many things wrong.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to some of this in my other shows when even on the Sports Crib, we have spent a lot of time trying to raise funds in order to give water to Flint, Michigan. I mean, that's another city that has been beset by this water crisis. I think it was you that mentioned it was either you or I think it was you that mentioned uh, how bad the water system is throughout the United States. But
Yeah, it's not good.
yeah, but we'll get back to that. I see Mr. Scott is here, so I'm going to bring Mr. Scott in. Mr. Scott, how you doing this evening?
Greetings, gentlemen, and JK3.
We were talking about Brett Favre and the money that he received from the state of Mississippi to go to poor people. And Brett Favre, the NFL legend, says, "Hey, they're trying to smear me." What do you think about this, Mr. Scott?
Well, I don't know. These scandals and these things that are out there comes second, third-hand information. I don't know if he was out and out scamming and then he got some money right into his hands, or I mean, I'd like to know a little bit more about this transfer of money and this trail. Because I guess maybe I'm not up on it enough to really make a lot of comments on it.
There's a pretty good paper and text trail that makes it very, very. Plus, he gave back $1.1 million of the no-show speaking fees that he received. So, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, the whole Nancy News stuff, the stuff. I mean, there's a lot there, sir. I don't know how much you've dug into it, but it's pretty clear that he not only received funds, like I said, and gave some of it back. The state is still coming after him for $228 million in interest on the money that he received and then later returned. There's text messages between he and the governor's office, text messages between he and Nancy New, stuff where he's pushing for even more money. I mean, it's pretty clear.
My next question and probably, Mr. Scott, me and you will probably have to sit back and listen because I know less about this than I think you may, but you might know about this too. But I'm trying to figure out this thing between Alabama State coach and the fans of Alabama State and Deion Sanders when he was out on the field. And, besides the derogatory remarks and whatnot, Bill, what is SWAC?
Southwest Athletic Conference. Southwest Athletic Conference. My brother went to Alabama State. My brother played baseball at Alabama State. So I've been down there, watched the games. I know the area.
No, I know what SWAC means that way, but I'm talking.
I think
about
he means more in a colloquial sense.
When the coach of Alabama State tells Deion Sanders that he's not SWAC, and Deion Sanders comes back, well, if I'm not SWAC, who is? So, Bill, what is SWAC?
So, the implication is that Deion's a carpetbagger, and he may well be proven right before it's all said and done. But I don't want to say that because we don't know. Deion may coach there for 25 years. I don't think anybody thinks that's what's likely to happen, but he might. But he's saying that most of these people have toiled in these vineyards for years, right? Obviously, he played there. And after playing at Alabama State, he was a linebacker for the Oilers, the Jaguars, the Houston and Tennessee Oilers, Buffalo Bills. Then, got involved as a assistant coach, and has coached sort of steadily, working his way up. And then, obviously, a little less than a year ago, he got hired back at Alabama State. When he retired from the NFL, he also got involved in real estate as well before in his sort of time. He also did some announcing. He was one of the people on a show, a co-host of a show called Inside the SWAC. for a few years. Still occasionally, for years, he popped up on, Black College Football Broadcasting, and was inducted into the SWAC Hall of Fame himself at the age of 28 years old. He is now, and maybe, for a long time, will be the youngest football player ever to be inducted into the SWAC Hall of Fame. Like I said, not even 30 years old. Started out as a walk-on. Was originally an offensive guard, got switched over to linebacker. I don't know how the heck he's going to play guard. I've seen the man up close. He was probably 233 at its prime, and he arrived on campus probably, I'm assuming, less than that. So they made the right choice moving him to linebacker. But he's been in and around Black college football for many, many years. I mean, obviously his playing days, and he plans probably to coach as long as they'll have him. Essentially, I'm assuming this is probably his first and last stop as a head coach. And so we have to remember that you have to think a lot of these guys are really good coaches, have been coaches, very good coaches for a long time. And this guy shows up, a little over a year ago, and all the talk is about him. And when Buddy Pugh's team beat them in the Celebration Bowl last year, I'm sure it was very satisfying, because Buddy Pugh is a guy that has 200 wins, or I think he's either reached 200 wins or will soon reach 200 wins in his career. He's probably a future college football Hall of Famer, but nobody was talking about him. No one was talking about his team. All the talk was Deion, Jackson State, Jackson State. I can see how that would wear on somebody who's been doing this for decades, as opposed to somebody who's been doing this for a year and a half or so. Almost 2, I guess, coming up on 2 years now. There is, and people can say someone's a hater, someone's jealous, whatever, but it comes down to the sense that this is not something I'm not passing through. I live here. I think instead of, he almost said it, right? But that's I think the heart of his statement. When he said, "I'm not SWAC, you're SWAC," what he meant is, yeah, I'm not visiting, I'm not a tourist. I was born here and I'll die here, basically, was sort of what he was saying. And a lot of people think Deion's going to be coaching, somewhere else in a year, or less than a year, perhaps. So that's, I think, the heart of that statement. And
what do you think there, Mr. Scott? Is he trying to tell Deion that he's not homegrown?
Well, I think he actually went to Alabama State, didn't he?
Yeah.
Eddie Robinson Jr. did, yes.
Yeah, I think he actually
went there. He got inducted into the Hall of Fame, the SWAC Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so that's a tradition thing for him. I don't know the Deion. Deion is starstruck. Deion has always been, star. The dances, let's face it, Deion, Major League Baseball player. Come on, top football player in college and pro. So, he's definitely got some things behind him, and he actually brings a lot to their conference.
Yep.
He actually is really making people really look at this football and this conference, that they really, they pay more attention to it now that he's there. And I think, I don't know if I'm mistaken, I thought I read something where he brought in the coach that used to be here, the failed Mike Zimmer, because they were so tight when they were at Dallas. He was the defensive backfield coach, and I think he brought Zimmer in to assist him with his team. So Deion has star quality, and so he's going to exude that.
Right. And I don't think they have a problem so much with him just bringing attention. They have a problem with him enjoying attention. That would be the issue. If he were just bringing attention to the SWAC, I think they would be all hugging him and patting him on the back. But, everybody wants to ask Deion questions, and Deion doesn't run from answering questions ever. Deion's not a guy that's going to pass up an open mic, or somebody's got a camera with the light on.
His nickname is Prime Time. Come on. Come on.
Literally prime time. Correct.
Come on. Come on. Doesn't that tell you it's, Come on.
Yeah,
It tells
Maybe-
you everything.
this is not his last stop coaching. You know, this is his first stop getting into coaching, and I'm thinking he's looking for bigger and better things in coaching. I don't see him becoming like Grambling or some of the other coaches that stayed there the rest of their life. I don't see that.
No, and basically,
And that's what Coach
basically
Robinson was
that's
hinting
what
at.
he's trying to say, and the student at Alabama State. I mean, that's basically what they're trying to say. Gentlemen, well, I guess major announcement here. Washington has scored the first 3 points. 37 seconds left in
Well,
the game.
And first team to 10 is going to be declared the winner. So there you go.
Gentlemen, let's talk about a little NBA. It's only about 2 or 3 questions I got real quick. Actually, probably 2. But anyway, I'm sure everyone by now has seen the video or heard about the video of Draymond Green and
The punch heard around the world.
Do you think that Mr. Scott, that Draymond Green is going to be a Warrior next year? Do you think he's going to get an extension, or do you think that he'll be shown the door when his contract ends? Rumors are he wants to be a Laker. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the Lakers already have a geriatric team. I mean, I don't see how he's going to do anything to help the Lakers. Of course, these guys want to prolong their careers and go places. This punch, some people are saying he punched a guy that was going to take his job, and then he's kind of upset about. He sees himself, to me, as more than he is as a player. I mean, he has limited skills. He contributes. He's an annoyance to the other team. He pulls at their jerseys. He does. Boy, I think this is his last year in Golden State for sure. I really think that is the last year. Where he goes from there, the Lakers, my Timberwolves beat the Lakers last night in LA, and my cousin calls me from Atlanta. Oh, yeah, Timberwolves, Lakers got beat. It's preseason. I mean, people are, you can't start all this calling me and getting all this. It's preseason. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. But Draymond, they didn't suspend him. They fined him. I'm not sure even how much money it was. Probably doesn't matter. The money to these guys, it's just, incremental, inconsequential. But no, I don't think he'll be there after this year. And I don't know if he's going to last into this year. They might say that if the Lakers take him, the Lakers are what are they going to do with Westbrook? Well, that's a whole other thing there. I mean, he in the game the other night, he wouldn't get in the huddle with the guy that came there from here. What was that guy?
Beverly, yeah.
He's trying to be the guard and tell people to get together, and Westbrook, didn't want to hear it. So there's already some dissension going on there. This door could be opening very wide for the Timberwolves in the West. The door could be opening very wide. You still got Golden State, and if they're in disarray, Utah. We've got the Utah Center. So I mean, I think the Timberwolves. This could be a very sleeper in the West. That's just my opinion.
I don't think anybody is sleeping a team that's got Anthony Townsend. I mean, Anthony Carl Towns and
Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell.
I mean, I don't think anybody's.
Rudy Gobert.
I don't think that anybody's sleeping. On the Timberwolves. It's just a matter of whether or not you guys can keep it together. But I mean, you're another one of those good teams, but you're in the West. So we'll see how that plays out. Bill, what do you think? I'm not going to ask you about Draymond. I'm going to ask you about somebody else, and that's Jae Crowder. Jae Crowder is supposedly on the trading block. He's being replaced by Cam Johnson. And here's another one. I mean, there were talks between the Lakers and the Suns about Jae Crowder. Do you think the Suns will trade him within the conference?
I think they'll send him where they can get the best deal. I mean, I think that's what. It's not quite like football, right? Where it's still sort of taboo to trade within your conference, or especially to trade within your division. Actually, might trade within your conference, but rarely within your division. I don't think it's, from my experience, it isn't quite as doctrinaire in the NBA. And I mean, that makes more sense for the Lakers than Draymond Green. I mean, what are they trying to do? Put together a big three team? I mean, they keep getting older and older and older. So no, I don't think that Draymond Green's a great fit there. He needs to go to a young team that needs a veteran voice. That would make more sense, as opposed to going a team that has too many veteran voices like that. Oh my God. They have a lot of really good pieces, good young pieces, good guys, good pieces going into their primes, and Chris Paul being, once again, their veteran voice. But that team as a whole is mostly very young. DeAndre Ayton is just entering his prime, and Booker is just really entering his prime. So that's a dangerous team. Crowder is, 32, which would be old for most teams, but would be downright a spring chicken compared to the rest of the guys that the Lakers are trotting out there. They've been holding him out away from basketball activity, and that is usually a sign that they're hopeful of getting a trade done. I mean, would he be part of a Westbrook deal? I mean, it could be, but I don't know why the Suns would want Westbrook. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks there.
Well, we Bill, and I say we, and I don't mean in French, also wanted to know why the hell the Lakers wanted Westbrook. So,
yes, well, I remember what I predicted that would be an enormous mistake. Remember that, James?
Yeah, that's why I said we talked about this. So I did. You spoke about him going to possibly a younger team. See, I wish Demetrius was here now, because we talked about that sometime last year, whether or not Draymond Green would be a good fit for the Pistons. And considering what the Pistons are putting together, I don't know if Draymond Green could walk into a Pistons practice and be well received. But
that is an excellent question. But at least he provides something they don't really have. But the Lakers would be like a Coles to Newcastle situation. Like I don't get that.
Yeah, I'm sure, but let's see. Little college football here. The ACC Commissioner says there's a lot of push to expand the college football playoffs by 2024. Mr. Scott, do you think that we'll have an expanded playoffs by 2024? And if we do, how many teams do you think will be in it?
Well, as much money as they can get, they're just grabbing. I mean, I just saw an article here that 10 years from now, the Minnesota Gophers are going to play Alabama. I mean, they've already scheduled this out 10 years from now. So, I mean, in the Big 10 is what, the Big 15 now, 14? So, I mean, I put nothing past these money grubbers.
They're at least the Big 12. I mean, if not the Big 14 soon.
Yeah. So they could they'll expand. Oh yeah, they'll probably have a playoff. They'll probably have all kinds of little things that they can keep this thing going, just like the pros are doing. They want to just get rid of preseason, which they've been trying to do that for years.
Well, so yeah, basically they have, and now they've changed the Pro Bowl, so hey, it's kind of like the playoffs or bust.
Are they still having the Pro Bowl? I thought they canceled it.
No, the Pro Bowl is now going to be a skills contest, I believe,
Yep.
instead of an actual game.
Yep.
Punt, pass, and kick. Punt,
There you
pass,
go.
and kick. Oh yeah, my son
there you
used
go.
to do that. Yeah.
Hey, some of you guys have kidded me because I called the new football league an adult Pop Warner football league. But hey, now we got the skills contest to replace the Pro Bowl. So what are we going to have? In 2025, everybody gets a participation trophy. I mean,
well, the great announcer, the great Troy Aikman, made some comments the other night about a play that he saw, and he's caught a lot of flack for that. But when you really listen to what he said, it kind of made a lot of sense.
yeah. Bill, Coach Rhule returns could return to the college ranks, and if he does, there are quite a few jobs opening.
Yep.
So
and more to come.
So, if he does go back, where do you think would be his most likely landing spot? Colorado, Nebraska, Georgia Tech, Arizona State, Wisconsin, or somewhere else?
Well, I think the one he wants is Arizona State, and that would be the smart move. There's a good foundation there. They've recruited well. It's in a place where it's not hard to get young men to come and play football. Wisconsin's a slightly harder sell. Nebraska is a damn near impossible job. Good luck to whoever gets that job. Colorado is, it's not quite as difficult as Nebraska, at least mostly because those people have realistic expectations, unlike Nebraska fans and boosters. The problem with Nebraska as a program is that they are still quite drunk on the fumes of nostalgia and mystique. And what they don't seem to realize is that the world continues to spin upon its axis. And you can't just show these young men pictures of Dean Steinkuhler, Trev Alberts, and Mike Rozier, and they're going to sign. Like that's not going to get it done. And last but not least, I'm going to give you 3 letters: NIL. Nebraska is lagging way behind some of these other institutions, major institutions at least, in terms of opportunities and the kinds of collectives and deals that other places have put together.
Hey, if you don't get an endorsement by the Cornhuskers Foundation, there's a reason why they call it the Cornhuskers State.
Right. There's a few major businesses, and they do have some wealthy alumni, but what they've been lagging behind. They are generations behind what's going on at Texas A&M and Alabama and USC. Like they aren't even in the picture. They aren't even hailing distance behind what Arizona State is way ahead of them when it comes to stuff like this. So if you are a smart man, and I think Matt Rhule is a smart man, I think that he will at least first, if he has his pick, I think his first choice is likely to be Arizona State. That was an 8-3 team, or 8-4. So 8-4 team, obviously not this year, but last year. Wasn't that far back. They were good.
Makes sense. Mr. Scott, Feinbaum says that Alabama will lose to Tennessee if Bryce Young doesn't play. Do you agree with that?
Boy, I don't know. Those teams, Alabama, Georgia, they have so much talent. They are just, man, I watched those teams play, and I'm just amazed by the speed, the talent of these teams. And I don't agree with that. I think those games are toss-ups. I don't think that there's a clear, talent-wise, Alabama's always up there, and they have been for the recent history. And I think they are now. Georgia, that conference, those Southern teams have really, I like them. I don't agree.
Bill, do you agree with Feinbaum?
Well, Tennessee might upset Alabama, but it won't be because of Bryce Young. Have you seen Jalen Milroe? I mean, he's listed at 6'2", 212. He's not quite 6'2", but he's way over 212. That must have been his weight when he made his high school visit. He is a monster, James. Have you seen him? Oh, my sweet baby Jesus. He holds all the weight room records for quarterbacks at Alabama. He doesn't really lift with quarterbacks because it'd be embarrassing. He lifts with linemen. He lifts with defensive ends. He lifts with defensive tackles. He lifts with offensive guards. He's a 570-something squat guy. He can power clean 380 pounds. He can bench press over 440 pounds. He is a monster. Now, he's not as refined as a passer as Bryce Young, but he is a handful to try to bring down. It's not – the offense isn't the question. This is not a vintage Alabama defense. And Hendon Hooker, well, his first name's actually Allen, just like his father, but Allen Hendon Hooker, son of the NCAAF, all-time great quarterback, Allen Hooker, is super dangerous, both as a runner and as a passer. It's going to be the defenses. If Alabama's running game gets stymied by Tennessee's defense and they force them to throw the ball and they can get a couple of interceptions because Milroe doesn't see late rotations. He doesn't see disguised coverage yet. He's too young as a quarterback to see those things. You're going to get your hands on a couple of balls if you can force him to throw and then, change the picture on him from pre-snap to post-snap because he doesn't know how to read those late shifts from something that looks like man and something becomes zone and vice versa. And if they can contain Hendon Hooker and once again, maybe force a couple mistakes from him, it's going to be defense that decides this game. So while Bryce Young is an important player, he's last year Heisman Trophy winner, blah, 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 they're just fine without him. Not maybe fine is a bit of they have to win differently without him because they can't do as many things in the passing game, but Milroe, I mean, if you haven't seen him, watch him. He is trouble. It's like, I'm trying to think who to compare him to. Imagine, you guys remember a guy named Michael Haddix from Mississippi State, played in the NFL for about 6-7 years. He's built like Michael Haddix, runs a bit like Michael Haddix, but he's a quarterback, right? He's a power runner at quarterback. He's bigger. He's like a taller Jalen Hurts, but not as far along as a passer. But I mean, so powerful. To me, they could straddle. I mean, they have a bunch of guys that can straddle a quarterback and still be just fine. It's going to be the defense. Can they get a couple of turnovers and can they avoid giving up big plays to Hendon Hooker? And can they simply continue to just run the ball down Tennessee's throats? If they do those things, they'll be just fine. They'll win by 10 points. Now, if they're forced to throw the ball, then they might get in some trouble.
Bill George is back in the number 1 spot. Alabama's at number 3. Is this bulletin board material for Ohio State?
Is Ohio State being stuck at 4, I guess? Is that what you're asking? Is that
no, Ohio State's stuck at number 2.
Oh, they're at number 2. Oh, sorry. So being
Michigan,
number 2 to Georgia
Michigan is number 4.
Oh, okay.
Michigan is number 4.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, so is being number 2 to Georgia bulletin board material?
If you remember the way it went, Georgia started out being number 1.
Right.
They had a bad game. Alabama vaulted into number 1.
I remember.
I guess the idea is that why
they're being passed over?
Right.
Well, because they haven't really played anybody, to a certain extent, and both Alabama and Georgia have played some people. So Ohio State will soon be tested. We'll find out if Ohio State is any good. Their offense is still their offense. It's an absolute thing of beauty. And if you want to do an X's and O's segment, which I guess you don't, there's a lot to get into in what Ryan Day has done because they had a good offense before when Urban Meyer was there. And Ryan Day he's taken this very, very effective offense and tweaked it and added some little twists and little adjustments that just make this very, very good offense one of the best offenses in football. and when I say in football, I'm not just talking about college football. There are pro coaches that are looking at what Ryan Day is doing and saying, "Oh, I can do that. We can use that." He is a terrific play designer and a pretty good play caller. Those are two different sets of skills. If his play calling catches up to his play designing, woo! I mean, nobody will hold him under 50 practically if he gets to be that good a play caller. But as a play designer, he's top 3 probably in all of college football. So, but their defense hasn't really been tested. I don't know if that is it usually good. We just sort of say it's good. We assume it's good, but has it? We don't know that for a fact. When they face a really good offense, then we'll know if that's a good defense or not.
Well, the defense improved last year, so we're hoping that they're making the strides and not going backwards. But we'll see.
Yep.
Mr. Scott, which one of these contenders do you think is in the most trouble here in week number 7? Alabama, which is number 3 against number 6 Tennessee, number 10 Michigan State against number 4 Michigan. Let's see who else there here. Oklahoma State, who I believe is 6 against TCU, and finally USC against Utah.
Well, the Big Ten, that's what I hate about it, because all these 12 teams and all this. See, everybody doesn't play Ohio State. See, Minnesota doesn't play Ohio State, and so Minnesota came out of the gate just roaring. Oh, yeah, they just thought they were so great, and then they play Purdue and get it handed to them. Mm-hmm. And so now this week, Illinois, which is a rejuvenated Illinois. This is not your old Illinois. This is a very rejuvenated Illinois, and so we'll see what it's made of. But I think the Big Ten is pretty much fraudulent, because if you don't play Ohio State, you don't play Michigan, you don't play the top. Well, I think the Gophers, didn't they beat Michigan State? I think they did.
Yes.
Yeah, they did. But what Michigan State is? What is it? 2-4 this year, Bill?
I know they have a losing record.
I think
it's. I'm heard if they played enough. I think they might have only be 2-3. I don't think they've played their 6th game yet.
Okay.
But
yeah. But the Big Ten is just everybody doesn't play everybody, and then you got these Marylands, and you got the Rutgers, and you got these teams that Nebraska, that very inconsequential, but just opponents type teams.
So what do you think about that number 10 Penn State versus number 4 Michigan?
I think it's a toss-up, but I guess I like Penn State. I mean, I've always liked it. Those are 2 legacy-type teams, and they seem to be playing good ball this year. So that's that'll tell a lot about the division, really, that who's going to actually challenge Ohio State. That's kind of what I'm saying. I thought the Gophers really were going to do it. They got a quarterback. Man, this guy is so old. This guy's been there like 7 years. I know. Yeah.
Like Tanner Morgan, PhD, you mean?
So
I'm sure Bill can tell you how long he's been there, the date he got there, and how many yards he's passed for, and so forth.
It's well past 4 years. Okay.
It's 50% past 4. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the other college games I'm not too up on. Let me see.
Like I said, Oklahoma State against TCU.
That's going to be a barn burner.
And a lot of people are saying, they say that the smart money in Vegas is on Utah. I don't know how true that is, but.
Well, I mean, Utah, I think, is giving 3.5 points, right?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. To USC.
They're more battle tested. They've played, a better schedule. They aren't as physically talented as USC. But USC's defense scares me a little, to be perfectly honest. And they still haven't really built their offensive line, or either their defensive or well, they have some good pieces on their defensive line. It's not a full defensive line yet, but they have one or two guys that are going to play on Sundays. They have a couple of Sunday guys, but the line itself as a whole isn't all that deep. This team is still, I would say, one or two, I almost said draft classes, but with the portal, you can get good faster than before. So I would say maybe one more, trip into the portal and scooping up some more talent that way, and then one more recruitment class away from being a legitimate national contender. But could they win the Pac-12 this year? They certainly could. The Pac-12 is pretty good this year. UCLA is undefeated. Oregon is still good. Washington State is going to upset some people like they do every year. Watch out for Washington State. And we like to joke about Mike Leach, but he has the most effective running attack of his entire coaching career. Now, that's not saying a lot because it's Mike Leach, but they had a 100-yard running back. They had a guy rush for 100 yards. Now, it should be pointed out that has happened, I think, 3 times in Mike Leach's entire coaching career. But it's trending upward, the running game. And so that balance, because you're used to just trying to take away or at least reduce the opportunity for them to get big plays in the passing game. And it's a short attack passing, right? They're using that. It's essentially just a spread out version of West Coast offense. That's really what the air raid is. It's just spread out West Coast. They're using the same triangular, everything's built on those little triangles, right? Same as the Bill Walsh, and system. And so but Bill Walsh was a guy that really loved the running game. And that was something that until recently had been largely eschewed by Mike Leach. But he's now working it in more and more. And so, he's
starting to work with the personnel that he gets instead of trying to make him somebody else.
It's a combination of things. So he's in the SEC and he realizes I've got to run the ball a little bit, at least a little bit. And they've gotten better at it than ever before. And, he left sort of his template in the laps of Tim Rolovich, who got his behind fired over the whole COVID-19 brouhaha. But when he was replaced, they made some changes. They didn't throw everything out, right? Rolovich is trying to shift from air raid to run and shoot. And while there are some similarities, they are not the same. And so now they've gone a little bit back to a more traditional spread offense with air raid principles, because run and shoot can be extremely effective, but it puts a big load mentally on both your quarterback and receivers because they both have to read. You don't know where the routes are going because the defense dictates the route concepts in run and shoot. So it's ugly for a while, right? Because it takes a while for the guys to see the defense with the same eyes.
But hold on, Bill.
Sorry. As I mentioned, I could do a whole extra segment, but I won't. All right.
Yeah, we got to pull you back here a little bit.
Yeah. No problem.
Okay. So let's talk a little NFL here. Mr. Scott, did you watch Monday Night Football?
Yes, I did.
Did you watch what happened afterwards when Devontae shoved the gentleman as he was going down the tunnel? Because it's reported now that the Kansas City police have arrested Deontay for misdemeanor assault for that shove on what they called a credentialed employee. He was actually an independent cameraman that worked for ESPN. But Mr. Scott, how much do you think that the sheriff shown around the world is going to cost him? Shannon Sharp says it'll easily cost him $250,000. What do you think?
Well, Shannon Sharp, just skip. I listened to that, and he should have done that. That's off limits. These guys should know better than that. Especially a guy his caliber, the amount of money he makes, and what He should know better than that. I think he's just frustrated that he left Green Bay and he went there and it's not really going like he thought it would. It's not going like that. And he just showed that frustration, and it kind of came out at that point. And, you do those kind of things and it's on TV. It's national. Everybody sees it. I mean, there's no getting around that kind of a thing. But I didn't know he was arrested.
Oh
I
yeah,
thought maybe the guy charged him or said made a police report.
No.
He got arrested.
No, he was actually arrested, taken before a magistrate, given a bond, and he has. I don't think we've heard the actual appearance date yet, but the gentleman claims that he has a light concussion. And I believe they called an ambulance, and the man had to be taken to the hospital. And as I said, now the only thing left actually is the libel suit. Bill, do you think? Did you think a $250,000 is right around that range?
Is that the going rate now?
Those things, it's immediate call to his lawyer. First, it's going to be immediate call to the lawyer, what to say, what to not say. And I mean, the league is going to do something. The league probably has to do it, and the team might have to do something.
Sure. Well, if it happened to me,
the league is not. I mean, the league has said, not the league, but the team has said that it's not going to suspend him.
Right.
The league, however, we don't know.
We don't know, right?
Yeah.
I don't think the league's going to actually get further involved unless they have to. I think they'll let the team handle it. Now, if it happened to me, I'd be in a full body cast. I'd be in traction.
Of course. You'd have the thing on right now. You'd have it. I would too.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be putting out reports that I was dangling between life and death. So, yes. I mean, we know how this game is played.
Eventually, bulletin, gentlemen, there has been a touchdown scored. There has been a touchdown scored in this game. In Chicago.
What a time to be alive, right?
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, we know how this game is played. My lawyer will call your lawyer. They'll throw out a number. You'll throw back a number. Eventually, they'll meet somewhere, and whatever the number will be somewhere between what this guy wants and what this guy wants, and then they'll meet somewhere. It'll be somewhere between those two numbers, and boom, resolution, and it will all go away at that point.
Let's see, Bill, do you think OBJ will be back in a Rams uniform, or since the guy said he wants to play for a contender, will he be somewhere else?
Yeah, I think he will be somewhere else. While I can't entirely rule out the Rams, two things work against it. One, their actual cap situation. I know people like to throw out things, but they don't look at the cap. Unless OBJ is going to give them a steep discount, he won't fit under the cap. So, I get the feeling that some people just don't do any research. As when people throw out certain things. Oh yeah, he's going to the Rams. Is he though? Have you checked? So there are teams that can actually afford him, like the Colts. Now, are the Colts a contender? Probably not. So if he's looking to play for a contender and not give someone a steep discount, so let's assume he wants to get paid the market rate or close to it for a player of his caliber. Teams that could probably make it work. The Ravens would have to restructure some people, but they could. Now, there's the one good thing about them not having signed their quarterback to a big money deal. They got some money to play with since they haven't done a deal for their quarterback yet. So theoretically, they could make it.
And the Ravens spend the least amount of money of any team in the NFL for receivers anyway. So
right, correct. They have the least amount of money allotted to that position. They haven't yet done a deal for their young quarterback who's still playing on his rookie deal. So there's an opportunity there if they decided to pull the trigger. They are a contender. They could make it work with their cap space, and they have an actual need at the position. So if you were sort of stacking a board, I would probably put them at the top. Other teams that have the money and have a need at the position. The Chargers have injury concerns because Keenan Allen has not been able to stay healthy recently. He gives them also a different kind of player than the current receivers they're trotting out there. Palmer is a big-bodied guy who has decent speed, above average speed. Mike Williams is a jump ball receiver who's got size. The only guy with real speed is a guy that I'm a big fan of since I discovered him at Portland State because I was scouting his quarterback, a guy named Garrett Saffron, who's actually playing in Japan right now. But his name is Jae Crowder. He was a guy that's played a little bit several different places in other leagues, was brought in originally as a return guy, but got his chance due to injuries and has shown out. But he should really be a wide receiver 4 or 3. If you bring in a guy like OBJ, that means you now have a true wide receiver 1. Mike Williams slides down to being about a 2. That makes Palmer about a 3. Jae Crowder a 4. And now they go from having a weakness at the position to being one of the strongest at the position, and they can make it work with their cap situation. Everyone else is kind of a pipe dream.
Mr. Scott, Mr. Scott, what do you think? Is OBJ coming back to the Rams, or is he going somewhere else?
Probably, I agree with Bill, somewhere else. And I'm not a fan of this mid-season stuff, people coming in and they haven't been to camps. We don't really know what they've been doing as far as conditioning-wise and training-wise. I'm sure they go through physicals and all those things before they get signed. But I'm not I think he'll be with somebody else if he comes back. I mean, I don't see that he has any closeness with any team. I don't think the Rams would bring him back. Actually, the Rams are struggling. The Rams right now, and there's a big question about the Rams and that quarterback. I think that, he's been with Detroit all that time and he really never did anything. And he could be a Trent Dilfer. He could be a Brad Johnson. He could be somebody that gets a Super Bowl and just goes in, as Mike Tyson would say, into oblivious. After
I think that's not a great comparison. Those were game managers. Brad Johnson was a decent guy, and Dilfer was well below average and obviously carried by an all-time great defense. Matt Stafford was a first overall draft pick who has elite level talent, particularly with his throwing arm, but he's had a bunch of injuries throughout his career, played behind a terrible offensive line for a long time obviously in Detroit. And even now, though, for whatever reason, no one will admit it, he's struggling with an elbow problem, and he's not talking about it. For whatever reason, he's a tough guy, I guess, but he's got bone chips in his elbow. No one's talking about. That's the issue. He's got bone chips in his elbow, and nobody wants to talk about it for some reason. That's the issue.
Mr. Scott, you said that you watched that Monday night game, right?
Yeah.
Was that a classic, or was that a chapter in Coaching for Dummies?
Well, possibly both. I mean, Mahomes is the man. I mean, to me, there's no question about that. Mahomes is the man. When he gets rolling, when he wants to get it done, he's, he is the man. And it looks like he has enough around him. I can't see why they won't win the whole thing again. I mean, I really don't. Football now with, going for it on 4th down in your own territory, trying to kick 55-plus yard field goals. I mean, nobody's playing field position. They don't want to do that anymore. They'd rather go for it on 4th down. They'd rather go for it in their own territory. They'd rather than punt the ball and make the team come back. They don't. So the whole coaching idiom now to me is not. I'm so used to watching the old Vikings when you had the great Fred Cox, and they get to the 35-yard line, they kick a field goal. Other than that, they punt the ball. Period. If it's 4th down, but they don't do that anymore. I guess it's not exciting enough. So it's changed the game. But if you have a Mahomes, all bets are off. because to me, he's the best in the business.
Bill, a classic or a chapter in Coaching for Dummies?
Well, as to point out, the real answer is both. The reason that, and these things are linked, the reason that teams, when they realize there's 4 minutes and however much left in the game, and we don't want to give the ball back to who? To Patrick LeVon Mahomes. We realize we can't stop him. Our defense is being shredded by him all day long. We're going to go for it here because if we kick it back, then we lose anyway. That's it in a nutshell, Mr. Scott. Do you want to lose now or lose later? Do you prefer death by 1,000 cuts, or would you rather just jump on the grenade? So when you realize with the changes in the way the game is played and the rule changes, the idea that you simply are going to stifle great offenses with your defense, that ship has sailed. That is no longer a real thing. And the only time that can happen is if maybe there's, like he's on the Super Bowl, where Tampa Bay took advantage of the fact that they lost their 2 starting tackles. And so all of a sudden they're trotting out guys that would have been reserves or guys that would have been playing another position and throwing them out at left and right tackle. And they were able to just harass Patrick LeVon Mahomes to the point that he literally ran for 124 yards behind the line of scrimmage or something like that in that game. So it was but outside of those kinds of sort of one-off kind of happenstance, you have to coach as if the other team's going to get the ball back and score, because guess what? If Pat Mahomes gets the ball back, they're going to score. Now, kicking long field goals, that's nothing with analytics. That's just people trusting their field goals.
Oh,
because analytings tells you not to kick field goals.
Okay,
I'm just telling you.
Here we go.
Trying to talk to Mr. Scott about analytics is like trying to talk to him on Monday about the rap game. So we're gonna leave that one alone.
Yes, in Mr. Scott's nightmare, there's people rapping about win shares and about high leverage situations in football games. That would be truly a nightmare if someone was to rap about analytics.
These coaches, on the sideline, they have a little thing here, and they're punching in stuff right on the sideline. Instead of firing up the team, who wants to play? Who wants to get out there and get this thing done? They have to punch up something on the little thing like this. They got to punch up.
Tom Brady decides when he don't like him, he throws them away. But everybody don't have Tom Brady money. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about this game here. I meant to talk about this earlier because Ron Rivera actually says it's his quarterback's fault that the Commanders are off to a 1-4 start. Right now, it might be a 1-5 start, but right now it's a 1-4 start. But he apologized to Carson about his comments. But Mr. Scott, once you say those things about your quarterback, can you really put that toothpaste back in the tube? I mean, Kirk Cousins has been the example for a few seasons, also. Where is it Kurt or is it the rest of the team? But I mean, what do you think? It doesn't look to me like Carson has any more confidence now than when he started. Both teams have been down inside the red zone, and so far, Chicago's the only one that has scored. And even then, they didn't score from the red zone. It was a long touchdown. So what do you think here,
Dante? I'm still in the league, Pettis.
So what do you think about this relationship between Rivera and Wentz?
Well, Carson Wentz, I mean, he's cost a lot of people their jobs. I mean, he's come in with all his fanfare, and I'm beginning to think that these North Dakota in that league quarterbacks pretty suspect. I mean, I come out with a lot of fanfare against the teams that they play in their league, but they get into the NFL, and Wentz seemed to have all the all the tangibles with Philadelphia. He's got the size, he's got the arm, he's got the, but something is just not clicking with this guy, and so. I mean, I can see why that he brings frustration where he goes. The talent, it seems to be there, but it doesn't show up in the games. It doesn't show up. Doesn't the leadership, the the ability to lead the team? It just does not show up. So I don't know where that goes. I'm not a Wentz fan at all. And again, I'm thinking that the whole North Dakota quarterbacks, they say is suspect. I haven't seen them really come into the league and really do great things.
Well, they are a small school, Mr. Scott. I mean, do you expect them to have the same? I mean, do you think he's
but then they're number one draft picks, but then they're getting drafted in the first round. They're getting drafted now. So people are thinking, they think they see something. They think they see, but when they get to the league, it just, my point is that it hasn't transferred.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
they were seeing.
And Wentz has had more than one chance. Wentz has had several chances, and where he's went, each team makes him the starter. And it's the same old story, same old soup, just warmed over.
I mean, what they're seeing is a guy who's 6'5", 232 with a big arm and could move, and he obviously played really well, prior to the injury with the Eagles. So and you don't get to be an NFL head coach or an NFL offensive coordinator without having a fairly strong ego and a lot of self-confidence. And so these guys say, oh, well, I can fix him, right? Oh, I can fix him. If you were to ask half the NFL offensive coordinators in the league, could you fix Carson Wentz? I guarantee you that probably almost every one of them, but well more than half would say, yeah, I can fix him. These people really believe in themselves, sir, in case you're wondering. I've talked to guys who coached in the league, and they have a very strong sense of themselves and what they can accomplish. But let's be completely clear and honest. His issues are not physical, right? He has a lot of physical ability. He is a guy that struggled with, I'm trying to put this, the cultural aspects of being an NFL quarterback. For those that know the inside baseball on what happened in Philadelphia, there were some things that he said and ways that he treated certain people that did not go down well, and eventually led to the end of his time there. Apparently, those issues did not raise them their ugly heads again as much, and they were a winning team in Indianapolis.
But that's because of the people that were around him. That's because of that particular team at that time. And see, people really have to look at that.
Oh, I watched every single game, sir, more than once. He played well also at times. Let's also be honest about that. He had 4 or 5 really good games.
He did.
Which is something he'll always be able to do. When you are a big kid with a big arm and you can move around, he's tough. I mean, toughness is not the issue. He just did not have the right personality to succeed in Philadelphia. He's the very opposite of a big city guy. I wonder if DC is going to work out any better, but I mean, Minnesota would be a great fit for him, actually.
Yeah. Bill.
Well, why wasn't Indianapolis a good fit? Why wasn't Indianapolis?
Mr. Scott, I think you're not hearing what Bill is saying. The man did not fit in Philadelphia, and now you're sending him to Chocolate City. I don't know how much more plain I can put that without just coming out.
I mean, before that, wasn't he in Indianapolis? Wasn't he in Indianapolis?
And
he was anointed with a good coach, good quarterback coach on that team.
Once again, Mr. Scott, do you remember the location that you're talking about and the culture of Indianapolis?
Yep.
It's not the team and the personnel as so much as he might have a little problem getting along with you people, just to put it bluntly.
or vice versa, right? Some of them really,
yeah. Or you people might have a problem
yeah,
getting along with him.
a little bit of both, probably.
Yeah.
But his play improved when he was in Indianapolis. That is, factual. The numbers were trending back in the right direction. And we don't know what would have happened if he had a second year there. I'll put it this way. Their offense looked better last year than it does this year. Have you watched them this year, Mr. Scott?
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah.
They were better last year.
Washington, Carson Wentz still does not have a touchdown. I just saw a score of
it's 6-7.
Yeah, somehow or another, the score is now reading 0-0.
Well,
But
either it's simply a commentary being listed there, or they've gone back in time.
Yeah, the score. I thought the score was 7-6, but anyway. Speaking of another hiring and firing here. Head coach Matt Rhule and the defensive coordinator Snow got fired after Sunday's debacle against the 49ers and a 1-4 start. But I mean, wasn't it the front office that brought Baker Mayfield there? Shouldn't they have some kind of accountability, Bill?
Well, I mean, it's not a Baker problem. There's a lot more going. Once again, I don't want to hijack. Well, I don't want to more hijack your show, but there's a lot going on there from the very top of the organization all the way down to the bottom, and it would take more time than you want to spend on it to explain it all. But let me say this: Baker Mayfield is capable. We just sort of went through this sort of same discussion with Carson Wentz. He's capable of making some wow plays, like positive wow plays. He can make some reads that other guys wouldn't make, some throws that other guys maybe wouldn't make. He also is capable, of course, making some, oh my God, what are you doing plays? And sometimes it like back-to-back plays. There's part of it is that syndrome of trying to prove himself. He's still trying to prove to those schools that didn't recruit him that they made a mistake. He's still trying to prove to everybody. It's like that guy who, after this, his fiance breaks off the engagement, gets hair plugs, tries to get a better job, tries to lose weight, does all these things to show her what she's missing, right? So he presses, he does things to try to prove everybody wrong. He's really got this huge chip on his shoulder. Goes back to the whole double walk-on thing and all that other stuff. He needs to care less about what other people think, right? He's the guy that got into Twitter wars with Colin Cowherd and all this other stuff. He needs to stop caring so much what everybody else thinks. But that's also there's some problems in that whole organization that, like I said, I won't labor that point. But Matt Rhule needed to go. Phil Snow, I mean, and probably some other people will still be, there'll be some more people gone before the season is out. They've got to reboot that program they've got going there.
Yeah, and the first person that needs to go there is McCaffrey. He's the one getting everybody fired because he doesn't play. He's always hurt. He doesn't play enough, and everybody keeps saying he's one of the best backs in the league. I don't see it. How? You got to be on the field to be the best back in the league. You got to be on the field. He's the one everything is centered around him, and he's either hurt or he's not going to play. I mean, so you're right. They do have to change their whole script, and I think he needs to go first of all.
Okay.
Well, to that point, there are some back channels between the Bills and Panthers, so we'll see what happens with that. I don't know if that's, if it's just classic scuttlebutt or if there's more to it, but we'll see if there's smoke to that fire soon.
There's also some scuttlebutt between the Bills and the Giants, so we'll see which one.
Boy, the Giants been playing some good ball. The Giants defense for a while. I was watching them the other day. Well, I thought I was looking at Lawrence and Harry Carson and them out there. They were
Oh,
gang,
come on, Mr.
they
Scott.
were
Now,
gang
come on now. Yeah, I mean,
they were gang tackling.
Yeah, and Jim Brown's gonna come running down the field, and he's gonna take Christian McCaffrey's place this Sunday. Come on. I mean, I'll admit that the Giants' defense is playing good, but Carson and come on now. No. I'm gonna have to
maybe
start.
it's the uniforms. Maybe they still have the tradition. Some of these other teams now they have uniforms. I don't know what team I'm even looking at. But
I'm gonna have to start checking that cup before you come on, Mr. Scott. you see it, Carson. you see it, Carson and Lawrence out there. Okay. We're going to get now to Mr. Scott's favorite part of the show. What's predictions. That? Our predictions this week. Now, since this game is not over and the score is 6-7, okay, the Commanders are a 5-point favorite, Mr. Scott. Are they going to cover?
Oh man, Vegas is going to take a bath on this game, Jay. They're going to take a bath.
I mean, obviously, I would have had to just go all in with the Bears if I was dealing with that game. So
Well,
hey, next touchdown wins. I mean,
next field goal wins.
Next, well, that definitely is not going to cover the 5 for either one. But so, what do you think, Bill? Are the Commanders going to cover this or not?
No, I mean neither of these teams could be trusted to beat anybody by 5 points. We're looking at a couple of probably the 2 most dysfunctional offenses in the league.
Wait a minute. Hold it, guys. Excuse me. I read this entirely wrong. Because they're not favored by 5.
They get 5. They get 5.
No. The Commanders are favored by a half a point.
Now that makes more sense.
Not even a full point.
No.
The Commanders are favored by 0.5.
Right. Well, that makes more sense.
0.5. Okay.
Yeah. One half a point. So
okay. So Vegas is not going to take a bath on this game. I was gonna say if it's 5 points, I was gonna be so mad at myself. Like that's the thing where you take out your 401k, the money for grandma's operation, you empty your child's piggy bank. 5. Oh my God! I would have bet literally everything I could lay my hand.
I've never seen a half a point spread in.
Well, it makes sense.
I mean, but Bill, this is football, not basketball. You see this in basketball or soccer, maybe. I mean, Mr. Scott. I mean,
it's more like soccer.
Yeah, half point. That's you don't see that. You don't see
that. Maybe back in the old days when you're talking about the Kansas City against the Bears or something like that, where they're playing in the snow or something. But okay, all right. Hey, I digress. Bill, 0.5. Are you taking the Commanders or are you taking the Bears?
Well, it's a slightly more challenging question, but that's a toughie. I mean, that really is a tough one. This is one of the toughest ones you've asked so far. Which shows that they got it right. Yeah, half a point is right. Because if it were a whole point, that's a different deal. I will. No, I'm going to go with the Bears.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I go with the Bears, and I go with the Bears because the Bears should have beat the Vikings last week. If their quarterback missed at least 3 guys that were open by almost 10 yards, he missed 3 long passes that the guys were open by about 10 yards.
Yep.
And so if he connected on those, people are having a whole different conversation right now. So I mean, I think he can. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a great athlete, and I think he can clean that up. So I would have definitely taken the Bears at a 0.5 point.
Okay.
What's the score now?
7-6 right now. The Bears are covering that 0.5 point.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one for you, Mr. Scott. The 49ers minus 5.5 at the Falcons.
I hate to give up points. I'm really not a good, but I think the 49ers are better. I don't know what to think of Atlanta right now. I really don't. And I think Garoppolo is a good quarterback. I mean, I think that Belichick is really kind of kicking himself for getting rid of him because, I mean, he had that guy there, was in the system.
Well, Belichick you have to remember, Belichick didn't want to get rid of him. Belichick wanted to get rid of Tom.
Yes.
It wasn't
And
Jimmy G.
And Tom went over his head. And
yeah, but so I mean, I
like if Bill had his brothers, Jimmy G would still be in a Patriot uniform.
Yeah, for sure. And I like him, and I think he should have been the starter. The backup they have, sitting on the bench another year or so wouldn't have hurt him. And if something happened to Garoppolo, he'd be more ready to play. So yeah, I don't know what to think of the Falcons. I really don't know what. But I would take the 49ers. I take the 49ers. I'm going to take them in that game. Giving up the points on the road.
Bill, 49ers giving up 5.5 to the Falcons on the road.
Yeah, I'm going to say the 49ers cover it. I think they win that game by at least a touchdown.
Okay, the Patriots getting 2.5 against the Clowns, Bill.
Oh, boy. Another one where they got the number about right. I will ever so slightly say I think Cleveland does not lose by, 2.5 or more. I think that Cleveland does not allow them to cover that.
Mr. Scott, I think I'm glad that Demetrius is not here tonight after what happened last week with the Patriots and the Lions. So, Mr. Scott, the Patriots plus 2.5 against the Clowns.
I have to go with the Patriots. I mean, they have to still show me that they're no good. I mean, I think that they're going to be in the mix. I mean, I really do. The Browns, even though I like their coach, he should be the coach here with the Vikings. But I think that Svengali comes up with something, and I have to go with the Pats.
Mr. Scott, the Jets plus 6.5 at Green Bay.
Oh man, Jets seem rejuvenated. This seems like a different Jets team than last year. I mean, this seems like a different Jets team, but I think that the Packers somehow they're going to figure a way to start getting this thing together. And in Green Bay, I have to take Green Bay and give up the points in that. I'm reluctant to do that. The Jets just seem like a different team, but I'm going to go with the Packers. I still think Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers until I see totally different. And so I'm going with him.
What do you say, Bill? I'm, I don't know about your fantasy league, but in most of my fantasy leagues, Aaron Rodgers put up a big 16 last week. But that's, I mean, what, what's your thoughts here, Bill? The Jets plus, what did I say, 6.5 at Green Bay.
Right. So the Jets are getting 6.5. That's a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot. The number scares me. I'll be honest. I think Green Bay wins it, but the covering 6.5 just scares me. I think it's gonna be a close game. I will say that they just barely cover. I think it's like a 31-24 kind of thing, but I think that they just barely cover it.
Okay. Sticking with you here, Bill. The Jaguars plus 1.5 versus the Colts.
Oof. I think the Jaguars can cover 1.5.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah, they seem to be a rejuvenated team too. I mean, I think they will. The Colts, I don't know what's happened to him. The running back, I don't know if he's hurt or if he's not, but he really has not been racking up the numbers near as he has, in the last year or so. So yeah, I'd take the Jags.
It's because I drafted his ass in my fantasy football, but we won't talk about that. Mr. Scott, the Vikings minus 2.5 against the Dolphins.
I don't know who's going to play quarterback for the Dolphins. They're kind of down to the third string. I think they're saying that he's going to start. I have no idea who this guy is. And they're saying that Tua or Bridgewater might be able to back up, which sounds pretty like smoke screen. They're just throwing it out there. The Vikings have just been winning by the skin of their teeth. It's on the road. I'm going to take them to win the game because they have a bye the next week. And it's just 2.5. But in the field goal, their field goal kickers missed at least 3 of them already. So it's a shaky one, but I'm going to take them.
Bill, the Vikings minus 2.5 at the Dolphins.
The thing that makes me feel a little more confident is that they're not going to be able to run their full offense. Miami's going to have to scale back their offense because Skylar Thompson is going to be starting this game. So that's their third string quarterback. So yes, give me the Vikings against a third string quarterback.
Bill, the Bungles minus 1.5 at the Saints.
Huh. I mean, I believe that'll be a close game, but 1.5 is not a lot. I think they will cover that, yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Saints at home. I think that's always a tough place. Their quarterback situation, I don't know where that's at, but I think they can win that game. 1.5, it doesn't scare me that much.
Okay. Let's see. Where am I here? I want to pick up one of these because I have to look at this one again. But anyway, the next one that I got for you, Mr. Scott, is the Bucks minus 7.5 against the Steelers.
Who's playing quarterback for the Steelers? Pickett?
Pickett is in there until he gets hurt. From now, Pickett is going to be our starter from what I hear from now on. So
Brady against Pickett. I'll take the Bucks.
Bill, we all scoffed last week when the Bills gave the Steelers 10.5. and they beat them by double that. So are the Bucks going to be as fortunate and cover?
Well, and the number is what again, James?
7.5. They're playing at home, but it's still the Bucks.
Yep, I know. 7.5. Man, that's a big number. For 4.5, I would not have hesitated. I'd have it. 7.5 is a lot to cover. I'll say yes, they do, but I'll be queasy and nervous the whole time.
Okay. Bill, the Ravens minus 4.5 at the Giants.
And you said the number was what again?
4.5.
4.5. I'll say no. I don't think they'll cover the 4.5.
What do you think, Mr. Scott? The Giants just coming in off of that victory over Brett Farve, upset. What do you think? They got 2 in them. They're going to cover this 4.5, or they're going to beat the Ratbirds straight up. What do you think?
Oh boy, that's a tough matchup. But I tell you, I liked what I seen of the Giants, and I think that quarterback's getting better. Their defense looked good. Boy, giving up 4.5 though. Yeah, I would take. I'd try the Giants. You know, I like the other team.
Mr. Scott, let's see. The Panthers getting 10.5 against the Rams. They're playing at the Rams.
Well, you know, I don't like no double digit stuff. I mean, really, I just say double digit. These are pros. But the Rams coming off the Super Bowl, I think they'd like to make a statement. This could be a good team that they could make it at home. Yeah, I would take the Rams.
Bill, what do you think here? You know, the way the Rams are playing, you know, I'm kind of shaky here. 10.5. I mean, Allen Robinson the second hasn't shown me anything. I don't know if it's going to be Cam Akers. I don't know if it's going to be Henderson. The only one that I know that I can count on as a Ram is probably Cooper Kupp. But other than that, I mean, 10.5 seems a bit much to me. I'd take the points here, Bill. With am I going to lose? Am I going to lose the double wide or what?
You might. It's been a up and down and kind of a tougher year than some others. I'll say that much.
So which one are you taking here? 10.5. We scoffed at that last week, right?
Yeah, 10.5. I'm pretty much automatically not. I mean, I don't. It's just so hard to cover that number of points. Even if it was 10, I mean, I still probably would say no. But 10.5, 10 and the hook. No. I just no.
No, I mean, there's a big difference between Stafford trying to cover 10.5 and Josh Allen trying to cover 10.5.
Yep.
So Bill, the Cards minus 2.5 against the Seahawks.
Cardinals and Seahawks. Yes, another battle for who's the real bird. And the number on it was what?
2.5.
Oof.
The Cards are given 2.5.
The Cards are giving 2.5.
Right.
Okay.
Seattle's playing at home.
Right. They're playing. You know what? What the heck? Seattle. Give me Seattle.
Mr. Scott.
Boy, Geno Smith against the Arizona court. Geno has really
Kyler Murray.
Boy, he's really, he's getting a chance and he's making the best of it. I mean, he's looked good, but 2.5 field goal. I mean, I'm going to take the Cards because I think they're the better team.
Okay. All right, Here's one of the big boys. We got two of them coming up here, Mr. Scott. The Bills -2.5 at the Chiefs.
Well, obviously, you like both teams. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, if they're playing anybody else, I would take them. But playing each other, and it's in Kansas City, the way Mahomes is playing, it's like he's got he's got kind of a chip on it, and I just think that what he's doing is that he can't be stopped. So even though I like the Bills, I think they're very solid all the way around, but I'm taking the Chiefs to cover.
Bill.
Okay. And the number on this one was 3.5?
2.5.
2.5. Oh, I wish it were 3.5. Okay.
No. Washington is 12 to 7.
Yes.
But Chicago has the ball and they're moving with 2 minutes 34 seconds left.
Yes. So see, the game is going to turn into a real barn burner towards the end. Yeah, I will also take the Chiefs.
Bill, the Cowboys plus 4.5 at the Eagles.
Okay, so the Cowboys are getting 4.5 points. Oof, and that's the 4.5 sways me. I think Philadelphia wins the game, but I don't think they win it by 4.5. So for the purposes of our exercise, I will say Dallas.
Mr. Scott.
Does anybody know who's playing quarterback for Dallas?
Yes, Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush is playing.
Cooper Rush. He's looked pretty good.
Central Michigan.
He's looked pretty good.
He's looked very good.
He's what, 4-0, right?
Yep.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
He's looked good. The Eagles at home, tough place.
Eagles undefeated.
Yeah. I take the Cowboys in the points.
Okay.
I don't know if they'll win the game, but I'll take the points.
Bill?
Yes. I mean, once again, we're agreeing. It was 4.5, right? Yeah. I just don't see them beating them by that number of points. I think it's a close game. I think Dallas might lose the game, but lose it very closely.
And the Monday night game, Bill, the Broncos plus 5.5 at the Chargers.
I do not trust the Broncos at all, but 5.5. I will say the Broncos only because it's 5.5.
Mr. Scott.
Boy, I tend to agree with that, but boy, Russell Wilson hasn't been looking like Russell Wilson to me. I don't know what it is or what. This is just the eye test. He just hasn't been looking like Russell Wilson. I don't know if it's the adjustment, the change of scenery, and it's on the road. I like the Chargers. I mean, I'll give up the points. I think things could get worse in Denver, actually.
Oh, right. Well, now that brings it to an interesting question, Mr. Scott. If you think that things can get worse in Denver, is Denver's head coach already on the hot seat?
Well, they've already fired a coach, so that could be definitely a game where, yeah.
You mean like a loser leave town match, Mr. Scott?
What's that?
You mean like a loser leave town match, Mr. Scott?
kind of, yeah. Well, I mean, two men walk in, one man walks out. I mean, yeah.
What do you think, Bill? Is he on? Is he getting ready to join Matt Rhule? Maybe as Matt's assistant at Wisconsin. No,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I mean, I think he could. In fact, I am writing an article about possible replacements. A name that isn't being bandied about enough, but I think you'll start to hear more is Mike Minter, obviously a successful NFL safety who is now the head coach at Campbell University in Bowie Creek, North Carolina, and he's really doing a great job. I think the number one FCS recruiting class composite. So they don't have, the heights of, say, Jackson State because they don't have 4 and 5 stars, but they have a bunch of 3 stars. It's a tremendous recruiting class and the best one maybe in the history of Campbell University.
Well, but I mean, as far as what about Bieniemy, the elephant in the room?
Well,
what about Bieniemy, the elephant in the room?
It's clear that they've all decided, and he's got some stuff in his past. He's not a clean candidate. They've just all seemingly decided as a group either never or not yet. And I think it will continue to be either never or not yet again this year.
I mean, it's glaring.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Patricia gets. I mean, this is well. That's probably for another conversation.
Speaking of some guys that might be on, I'll call them on the bubble here. What do you think about Colts quarterback Matty Ice, Mr. Scott? One and done for the Colts?
It looks like he was. I know one of your guests, he's not here, but I know he was just so giddy, so excited about getting Matty Ice. And
he joins me tomorrow. That's our coach, Mike Valverde. Mike does fantasy football tomorrow. Yeah, don't worry. I got questions for him too about Matty Ice.
Yeah. He'd be the one to, because he was just giddy. Oh, he was just so, because he wanted it to happen. Then when it happened, he was just over the moon. That he thought that was just going to be. And I personally thought Matty Ice had just passed his use by date in Atlanta. I mean, that's kind of how I looked at it. I mean, and I don't, it's still early in the season, I guess. If you're going to give people benefits of the doubt, it's still early. Their running back could get going at Indianapolis. Things could change. I really like their coach, even though he's on the hot seat. He's on the hot seat now. So they, Matty Ice kind of hits your wagon there. It's kind of a, kind of a wiggly bandwagon kind of a thing, wheels wobbling or leaking oil. So I don't know.
What do you think, Bill? Matty Ice, one and done in Indianapolis?
I mean, there's a decent chance he may even retire. So, I'll say one and done there.
Let's see anybody else that really stuck out here to me that might be done after this year.
I want to ask Bill. I want to ask Bill about Kirk Cousins. I want to ask Bill's analysis of Kirk Cousins up to this point in the near future. What your thoughts on Kirk Cousins? Because I have some thoughts, but I just really wanted to see what Bill thought.
Sure. Well, I mean, the good news is he's consistent and he's accurate. The bad news, obviously, is, the mistake, right? He doesn't do it all the time, but he does it at the exact wrong time. And the mistake is almost always cashed in by the other team. It might be not securing the ball when someone's coming around the corner and getting the ball knocked out because he got the ball low and, one hand on it in the pocket. There's a variety. He's found a variety of different ways to lose those games you have to win. Sorry. And I think if the switch flips where he just stops not caring and he's just going to go out there and attack and be aggressive in those situations, he has a chance, to lead his team to the promised land. They could be a Super Bowl team this year. There's nothing about anybody else in the NFC that makes you say, oh, it's impossible for a team like the Vikings to get there. So I think that obviously, like any other year, I will watch very closely, to see how this game at certain key positions starts to change as they move closer and closer to the next season. Because that team could be one of those teams that makes a giant leap and people go, oh, wow, where'd that come from? We can see those things this year by just watching and paying attention.
So what's your thoughts there as a Viking fan, Mr. Scott?
Well, I think if they can, as far as Cousins, already this year, he's been a little bit more inefficient than normally. I mean, usually he just throws single-digit interceptions, in the whole season. Maybe there'll be 5 or 6. I think he's already thrown that many to this point. But if they can beat Miami and go into the bye at 5-1, I think they're in pretty good shape in this division. Those are, you hate to say gimmies. You don't want to be just totally disdainful. But all roads point to that way. And so you get those 2 wins. Green Bay doesn't really seem to be, nobody's afraid of them anymore. They don't seem to be, unless they really start turning it on. So I think, the door is wide open for the Vikings. It just depends on if Cousins can really he's got Jefferson, best in the business. He's got a best in the business right now. And if they can get Thielen, there's been a problem with Thielen, is what happens with the older receivers. He'll catch anything he gets, but he can't get open like he used to. He's not getting open like that. It's a lot of contested balls when it goes to him, just not getting that separation that he used to get. So, but I think it's up. I think it's looking good. I think it's looking good for the Vikings. Cousins, this could be, boy, if they really go places, maybe he'll stick around. But if they don't, he could possibly move on. They could draft someone and try to retool this thing with the new coach. So it'd be interesting.
Cousins has already broken the bank. He's definitely not one for money.
No. He's been the greatest banker.
I'm telling you,
banker.
Yeah. I think the only one that probably beat him is Deshaun Watson, unless you start talking about baseball contracts, but that's something different altogether. So I'll tell you what we're going to do tonight. We'll do things a little bit different. Bill, your final thoughts for the evening, and then we'll sign off with Mr. Scott.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. There's been a lot of discussion of, the punch heard around the world. And it made me think, of course, of the Rudy Tomjanovich punch. And unlike the punch that we recently witnessed, Rudy Tomjanovich was in real danger. It was a dislocation fracture where literally the skull was out of alignment with the rest of his spine. He was injured badly enough that he could taste his own spinal fluid. And it essentially ended his playing career. And he was I think, 5-time All-Star before the injury, or something like that. So Rudy Tomjanovich didn't have the playing career that he probably would have had otherwise because of this injury, because of that attack. And, we're talking about something that took place in a regular season game, not in a closed practice that someone smuggled out, what should have been a secret. This was
and Bill, did you notice the angle of that particular video? That had to be someone that was a part of the organization.
Oh,
that video wasn't taken at floor level. That video was taken at an upper level.
Yes, 100%. No, I think that is something that is worth mentioning. There are people within that organization that don't necessarily think that Draymond's good for the team anyway. I'm not shocked that this came out. But what I'm getting back to is that of our major sports, the one that offers the second least amount of potential for violence is basketball, right? I mean, baseball is always at this end, and then soccer is kind of a mixed bag of guys flopping and guys, legitimately running into each other at high speed and sometimes even getting concussions, because obviously your brain is protected by hair or a headband in soccer at most. But from those extremes, from the top to the bottom, you get, at the top, things like MMA, boxing, and then not far behind them, American tackle football. But this issue isn't anything about what happens in a game. Either it was, as people like to say, something that was words that were passed, maybe going back to when they were in different teams, or, some of the drumbeat out there about Poole becoming or taking over for or filling the hole that's going to be left anyway, right? So like all of us, the end is closer to the beginning, at this point than him forever before. His NBA career probably is only 2 or 3 more years in length. And he's looking for a way to go out with a bang, not this kind of bang, but, a bang in terms of making another deep playoff run, maybe winning a Super Bowl, things like that, and restructuring everything that they do in such a way to give them the best chance to do that. I do not agree with or condone anything that Draymond Green's done. One thing, because he's committed assault, which I'm not a fan of. But also he's a guy that has really, really, really tried to show people his worth, how to prove to people his worth. Like Scottie Pippen has gotten into some of that, but Draymond's not even as good a player as Scottie Pippen. Pippen could do pretty much everything that Green does, but it doesn't work both ways. Green couldn't do everything that Scottie did. Nevertheless, he's going to go down as a great player. He's going to make the Basketball Hall of Fame, but I would like to see him get real help with people who are true professionals, where until they are satisfied, he must stay. Those are my final thoughts.
Mr. Scott, your final thoughts for the evening. We have 4th and goal with Chicago possessing the ball with 35 seconds left. They've so far thrown 2 incomplete passes. This was just a bad receiver should have had this. I'm one of those old school guys. If you got your hands on it, you're supposed to bring it in. But that's another conversation for another day. Go ahead, Mr. Scott. Your final thoughts for the evening.
Well, just the punch. What it just happened to remind me of. There was a situation a few weeks ago. I was invited to an event, and there was a lot of old Minnesota Gopher players there at this event. I don't know if I told you about this. Well, at this event was a guy I went to college with and my roommate, and he invited me. They live in Chicago, and his cousin Jim Brewer and him drove up to Minneapolis for this event. And so I go to this event, and who comes in but Ron B. Hagan, Clyde Turner, Dave Winfield. But what made me think about the punch, where they had a big brawl at the basketball game at the University of Minnesota. And I think it was Ron B. Hagan and this guy, Luke Whitty, I think Luke Whitty must have played, was it either Indiana or Ohio State? And it just turned into a terrible brawl, right at Williams Arena. It was really something. And we were kind of reliving that because they all came up here for one of their cohorts, Marion Barber, who played football at the U and was a pro Dallas running back. His son died. His son had died. And actually, Marion Jr. had played football too. He played for the Cowboys. And so they were all up here, but it made me think about how these punches and fights, and that was an all-out brawl. I mean, that was an all-out, that was really, if you should look that up. It's really something to see these kind of things. But there's altercations among sports and pros, and usually, it happens, and then they just go back to do what they got to do. There's a lot of money involved in this. So, well, I think Draymond really is pretty much on his way out with Golden State. like the Lakers. I mean, they're already, like I say, geriatric. I mean, he probably wants to go to a place like that. But it made me think of that event at the U when they had that big brawl, and all those guys. What happened? They all happened to come into the club. Matter of fact, I think Michael Thompson might have even been on that team. Clay's father, because he played at the U with that group of people. So yeah, those are ugly things that happen in front of everybody and with sports, but with Draymond, I'm not a real fan of his anyway. I mean, his game is pretty limited to me. I know these heart and soul players, they're important, but at some point, you need the younger players.
So, Mr. Scott, we want to thank you for dropping in. I hope we can see you next Thursday. And Bill, as always, it's a pleasure.
I hope Demetrius is doing well. I mean, I wanted to thank. He had such great fanfare and hopes for the great Michael Pineda, who Michael Pineda came to the Twins during the COVID thing, and they said, "Look, we'll give you $5 million just to get in shape. You don't have to play; just get in shape, and then we'll give you $5 million for the next year." So they give him $10 million, and he comes in, Then he goes to Detroit, and so they cut him, before you could be eligible to play in the World Series, and he was outraged because somebody would take me. So who would give you more money? I wanted to talk to him about Michael Pineda.
By the way, Bill, I did get a couple texts from Demetrius. He's not enamored with the Detroit defense at all, to say the least. I don't know if you saw the video with the bunny or not, but how is Demetrius? How's his situation, Bill?
Yeah, well, they're still fighting that fight, and we should hopefully soon, know a little bit more. They'll, when all the results come back. But he appreciates all the well wishes. They are committed to seeing this thing through, and they refuse to be beaten by this situation.
Yeah. So the best wishes from everyone at the Sports Crib. We wish his wife a very quick recovery. We know that it's a long, slow process, but as quick as possible. And only best wishes for Demetrius and what was it? Cornbread and Kool-Aid?
Yes. So the lovely Mrs. Cornbread and Kool-Aid and also has made it clear that she appreciates everybody's well wishes.
All right, guys. Well, hey, I'll see you all next week, man, and look forward to watching the games this week. And I don't know, is this game over yet? Or
It just went final.
All right. Well, hey, they covered that head.
Who won?
Nobody won. No, I'm kidding.
It was 12-7.
Washington won, but everyone who bet the under definitely won.
Yeah. They won the under. They didn't cover the half, but they definitely covered the under. So, all right, guys. I'll see you next week, man. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And, hey, be safe out there.
Yeah, take care.